Hey everyone, welcome to another video episode of the Rainbow Road No-No, my short story podcast. My name is Tony Marsh. You can hear all of my short stories on the Rainbow Road No-No with a link in the description. Today's short story, it's called The Psychic Antiques Roadshow, and it's about a fellow who is able to hold an item in his hand and divine things about the item psychically. So he travels around and he goes to antiques type road shows and tells people about the history of their items by psychic means. So here we go. The Psychic Antiques Roadshow. See the Birdhouse. The walls are painted blue. The roof is light brown. In the front, there's a hole the size of a silver dollar where a bird like a finch can come and go. And below that, there's a peg upon which a bird can perch, sort of like a front porch. Matthew held the item in his hand and inspected it through thin rectangular reading glasses. A really lovely find, he said. Rare and lovely indeed. What are its origins? He asked the young newlywed couple. Well, it was my grandfather's, or so we think, said the husband. He was a trapper in Freeport and an avid bird watcher and cabinet maker. Freeport, Illinois? Matthew asked. Home of the pretzels. That's right, said the husband. Your grandfather, he made the birdhouse then? He did not. We think it was made by a woodworker from Chetek, Wisconsin, sometime in the late 1800s, a man by the name of Lewis Hardy. Inspecting the bottom of the piece, Matthew said, That's likely correct. May I sit with it a while? Please, that's why we're here. He took a seat and held the birdhouse in his lap and closed his eyes. Soon he began to sway a bit. The husband and wife looked on. I see your grandmother quite loved nature, didn't she? She did, the husband said, placing his hand on his wife's. She particularly enjoyed hummingbirds, he continued. The husband and wife looked into each other's eyes and smiled warmly. Matthew's expression then darkened, but there was a sadness. We never really knew why, but when my father was a teenager, my grandpa suddenly took to drinking, as if something had suddenly changed. An incident, Matthew said, still communing with the birdhouse. Can you see what it is? The husband asked. Your grandfather, a hunter, he said, as if channeling a message from deep within the birdhouse. He was a deer hunter, that's right. A hunting party, an accident, his best friend. He never saw him there, he didn't know. My grandfather, did he? He shot him. It was an accident, but he shot and killed his best friend in the woods that day. My God, the man's wife gasped. That would explain those years of darkness and depression. God, how could you forgive yourself? Sir, I can't begin to tell you how much this means to me and my family. Matthew opened his eyes and set the blue birdhouse on the table. He sat with his hands folded, as if in prayer. He smiled, and then they shook hands. Thank you, said the man. Thank you. Matthew's assistant, Jamie, came back with some P.F. Changs. How's it going here? He asked. It's been a cathartic morning, Matthew said. Before he had time to finish his orange chicken, a man in an electric wheelchair arrived at their booth. He was an older gentleman and looked as if to be a ship veteran, judging by his hat. In his lap, he had a black leather bag that could have held a bowling ball. Morning, gents, said the veteran. Good morning to you, sir, said Matthew. You're the fellow that does the psychometry, that holds an object in your hand and can discern in your mind's eye the story of that object? Yes, sir, that's right. I've been frequenting antique shows for decades, and I ain't once seen the likes of that. Sure would like to know the story of this piece here, he said, giving the bag a pat. Well, let's have a look, said Jamie, taking the bag from the gentleman and placing it on the table. Wow, he said, removing from the bag a mask. The mask was the color of shoe polish, and it had a long beak like a crow. The eyes were round glass goggles like some steampunk kind of thing. And there was a silver chain that went from the mouth up to where one of the ears would be. What a peculiar thing, Matthew said. Found it a few years back in the attic. Old Victorian-era house I moved into after my wife's passing. Darn thing creeped me out at first, but I held on to it, thinking it may have some value. Matthew picked up the mask and looked at it, then set it back down again. He became meditative. Jamie put his hand on Matthew's shoulder, as if to ground him. Some items carry with them an extra powerful psychic charge, he told the man. Heck, I know what you mean. My grandkids won't go near the thing. Matthew took a moment to collect himself, and then he put the mask on. Matthew is 6'1". He has pale skin and long black hair he wears in a ponytail that reaches down to the middle of his back. He's 36 years old, slim and kind of lanky, and wears a black suit with a purple dress shirt. He wears a silver necklace with a small black opal that rests just below his collarbone. The opal amplifies his psychic vision. He sat where he was with the black crow plague mask on, and he looked a sight. If it weren't for the other booths with shelf clocks and senior citizens in shorts and old ladies walking around with purses, you might think you were at some kind of hardcore BDSM thing. He didn't move. He's likely going into a deep vision right now, Jamie informed the veteran. After another 5 minutes or so, Matthew removed the mask and took a sip of water from a bottle. He looked extra pale, even a bit green from it all. It isn't pretty, he began slowly. There was a man, the man who built your house. He was a doctor. He had a practice within the walls of that house. He claimed to be able to cure any disease, and many people came to see him. They'd bring their children to come see him. He did dentistry. In the cellar, he had a room in which to perform surgeries, organ transplants, amputations, and bloodletting. But he was also a drunk, and he was addicted to absinthe and opium. He kept an Asian boy there as a servant. The boy would light his opium pipe, and the doctor would lie there on his side and dream, and then wake up and abuse the boy. There was abuse of all kinds, sir, I'm sorry to say. There was sexual abuse. There was bestiality. The doctor liked to wear this mask while knowing animals. He brought dogs and cats in there, and he knew goats and sheep. He even had a young mare down there for a few months, and he knew her. He wore this mask the whole time while doing it. Matthew handed the mask back to the gentleman. I can't take that, he said. Matthew understood. Gonna have to sell the house, too. No wonder my grandkids don't like it there. Especially that old cellar. Say it gives them an icky feeling. The man thanked them and went on his way. Back in the pickup truck, Jamie jumped in shotgun and Matthew sat in the driver's seat. Fuck, man, said Jamie, slamming the door. How in the hell do you come up with that shit, man? Shut the fuck up, Jamie. Someone will hear you. Your goddamn window's down, dumbass. Shit, said Jamie, and went to rolling it up by hand. We got a good thing going here, dude. Let's not fuck it up with your big stupid mouth. Okay, dude, I'm just saying it's crazy as hell to hear all that shit you say to people. I don't give a fuck, Jamie. People think I'm some kind of master psychometric visionary or whatever the fuck, and I'm not about to let them think otherwise. Not when we're making this kind of bank. Matthew went to counting up the cash they'd made from that day's show. I guess I feel a bit guilty sometimes, Jamie lamented. I mean, these are good, honest people we're fooling. Matthew shot Jamie a look that could paralyze a wolf. Now you listen here. Don't you start growing a conscience, or I'll take you out to the desert, put a bullet in your head executioner style, leave you for the buzzards. Don't you think I won't? And don't you go telling no one about what happened between us that night in Houston either. I already told you I was drunk as fuck, damn near blacked out, and I thought your ass was a damn woman. So don't go saying shit, or by God, I will kill you. That night, they slept in a 2-bedroom suite at a Motel 6, and the next day, they were on the road to Reno.